there is a need of collaboration, there is a need of inclusion, and there is a need of adaptation. This can only come through online skilling. Online skilling may be anathema to some of us sitting here because skilling means handling equipment. And therefore, we have to modify online skilling as we see it today. And that is what we are attempting to do. We must have infrastructure partners who are not good in skilling, but they have infrastructure and they are willing to share that infrastructure. We must affiliate that and go and take the students there for a contact program. And thereafter, we must have a robust assessment system. And since we are working in the Indian system, I have no compunctions in saying, keep the assessor away from the assessee. Don't let them sit face to face, otherwise there will be corruption. And we cannot afford corruption in the skill certificate. We've seen this happening. We've tried to put a stop. In the current method, we cannot put a stop. But if we put an assessor virtually in the same classroom, assisted by another helper in that classroom who speaks the local dialect, what the minister said in the morning, we have to skill people in the local language. I'll go even to a further extent, we have to skill them in the local dialect. But if we do that, we cannot create content in so many dialects of India. So we have to find ways and means of creating content in a few languages and then delivering it in local dialects. This is what we are working on, and we have started actually so moto. My council has started implementing this, and let's see how the experiment goes. Mr. Rai is aware of what we are doing, so is NSDC. If it succeeds, and I'm sure it will, then the others can follow suit. And it is a fully collaborative system. We are not excluding anybody. It is inclusive. We will take all those who meet our quality standards on board. We will get people to do things that we are experts in. Today, training provider is told to create content also. Is that his expertise? He will do it because he has to run a business. That's not his expertise. So we should get people who are good in creating content to do content making. We should get people who are good in technology to create platforms, and we should get people who are good in assessment to do assessment. If that is their primary job, let them do their primary job and then collaborate. It should be our job as sector skill councils to bring them together and then deliver this to the student. We have started a new program called Hire and Skill. We also call this no fee, no employment, no fee. So we get jobs from our industry partners and we do pre-assessment of people, get them skilled and assure them a job. Of course, they are told that they will have to pay a little extra because they should have that feeling also. The others are normal. We assist them in getting jobs, but we do it end to end. We also realize that getting a job is not adequate. There will be many there who want to start their own businesses and who want to get into the entrepreneur field. We are trying to assist them by getting them collateral-free loan from banks. We haven't yet succeeded very much in this, but if the government agencies chip in, certainly we will. The next thing is that there are a large number of government schemes available which are not collated anyway. No, even the own ministry, the ministry was created and doesn't know how many schemes are running in that particular ministry. I'm making a very emphatic step. Now this is something which the government should undertake. They should have a document which says these are the schemes which are running and they should update it. And therefore, it is necessary that the government participates in all this effort of skilling and employment. And lastly, we have started training people in communication skills, soft skills, and also entrepreneur skills if they so desire, so that they become fully employed. I think I'll end now because we've shown a check, and the rest we can take on question and answers. Thank you so much.
I'll just respond to one point that Coach made. The government of India, through its 20 ministries, runs 73 schemes. All those 73 schemes and the details are listed. We have done it on the NSDA website. You can get the details of what categories they are, how they do it, and what they're trying to reach out to. It is true that all these schemes have a wide divergence in terms of approach, in terms of cost, in terms of duration, in terms of outcome, in terms And the government of India had actually set up a committee of secretaries. There were 52 secretaries of the government on that to try and rationalize all these and bring them into one kind of a rational structure. You know, where you had a common approach to how these courses were being run. The report of this was also submitted on the 26th of August, and as we speak, it is on our website, awaiting comments of the public. Which basically what it is suggesting is, it has tried to suggest a rational approach of all these schemes in 4 basic items in terms of duration. What is skill development? Today we have a scheme which has an extension work. You counsel somebody for 4 hours. Under one scheme that constitutes skill development. In another one, you need to put 3 years and get a diploma before you are considered skilled. So that's huge divergence. The cost factor, the issue of what should be the outcome. Some schemes today require you to have 75% employment before you are considered to have delivered that. There are others which require you to just skill, period, and ditto for monitoring. Some monitor, some do not. So it's there till the 15th of October. We still have 3 days, including today, to do it. And I just thought I'll just clarify that there are very many schemes, but what those schemes are and who they are trying to target and what are the norms that apply to each of them, that's known, that's well documented. You can refer to it on the NSDA website. That is nsda.gov.in. Thank you.
I have one question. Since you deal with all the programs, is there a system of monitoring the performance or the future, immediate future in 1 or 2 years after a student or a trainee passes out of the institution? Now, normally the universities have a system of tracking the career growth of their alumni, but in the lower segment, below graduation level, do you have that system? If you have, which are the departments which have this arrangement, and how effectively you can monitor it? I mean, that is very important to reorient your strategies every year. If you are planning new courses, there has to be basis. Why you want to go to a new course, or why you want to drop it into your course? So,
yeah, very quickly. I have another meeting at 2, so I'll answer this question and I have to leave with your permission. But very quickly, as I said, the 73 schemes that are being run, each one has its own set of norms. There are some schemes, like for example, the Ajivika skills of the Ministry of Rural Development. That requires you, a training provider, until he assures placement for 75% of the person he has trained, a portion of the payment is held back. He's not fully paid. And then there is another portion that is held back if it does not enter that on an online MIS system and tracks it for another 1 year, so that you know what is happening. There are other schemes where this is not required. Now, when we evaluate a scheme today, if a particular training provider, and most of these schemes run through private training providers, I cannot evaluate something, using a set of parameters that are not applicable. If the scheme required a private training provider to train, show that the training is done, to certify, and he's paid, the matter closes there. Today, I cannot go back with hindsight and say, no, now I also want you to place. But what we are trying to do is, training for training's sake is not the objective. Under the rationalized scheme, the proposal that is there, as I said, on the website, what is there now is clearly outcomes. And outcomes means that placements. Just making someone employable is not good enough if there are still a lot of employment opportunities that remain untapped and you're not able to get employment, get all those positions filled. So that has been there. Coming back to the specific question girls have asked, yes, now under the revised norms, the system is going to require placement within 3 months of completion of training, and a monitoring of that individual for 6 months. And this is going to be on an online transparent platform because this is part of the labor market information system. And that is where I think the ESDM, the IT sector, all of you have a very critical role to play. We have bits and pieces of information lying in islands here and there. We need to integrate it so that you get one. The same, a trainee wants to know who are the training providers. Information is very patchily available, it's not clear. So we created an online registry for training providers. You just come and register. Make your offering, no questions asked. At the next stage, our accreditation wing is, after you are registered, if you want to be accredited in the NSTA, again we are having very simple norms, the accreditation norm. From the 1st of October, we created a candidates registration website, whereby candidates anywhere in the country who wish to register and say, look, I have done 8 years of schooling, I'm 8th pass or 10th pass or whatever, I can spend 10,000, 2,000, 5,000, 500, whatever he can spend, and these are the fields I'm interested in. We opened this registry, and in a span of about 4 or 5 days, we had more than 1,000 registrations. We have roped in the youth clubs all over the country, or part of the Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan, to reach out and do it. So we need to bring all of this together, and similarly, not only are we going to be monitoring the outcomes of the individuals, the plan is going ahead. We should also enable each individual, give him his own login ID and password that you are mandatorily required to monitor it for 6 months. But after that, if he or she wants to update it going ahead, that all right, I did this training with this NIELIT partner here, I got this job there, that the training provider has to fill it in. After that, he said, all right, 2 years I worked there, then I moved to this place, then I moved here. He wants to create his own online CV for potential employers to approach him. He's free to do it. That's where we would like to make this. And I think that's where, again, the expertise of all the people in this room and of this department here are going to be very critical for that. But as I said, I'm already, I think going to be late for my next meeting. So with your permission,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
And my co-panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we are already overshot anyway. Dr. Bhattacharya now would speak for a few minutes and then move from my home state rather.
Thank you. I think as Mr. Rao was talking about what are the outcomes, and the entire morning session was focused on the outcomes. Let's just revisit and see what is the issue we are talking about in terms of what the problem is. If you look at the problem statement, so if you look at the problem statement, we have a population of 1.2 billion. The labor force right now is 500 billion. The workforce is 486. If you do the maths, we are short of about 40 million jobs. And if that's the problem, and you look at the projection by 2022, there will be 614 million people who will be there in the labor force. How many of them will be employed? See, that's the kind of problem we are talking about. It's expected that if we go the business as usual way, the normal way, we'll have 100 million plus people jobless in this country. They'll be part of the workforce, but they won't have a job. And if you look back to 2002, what the former Prime Minister had said, the issue before us is not whether we can achieve a significantly higher growth rate, rather it is whether we can afford not to. If we don't grow and if we don't create jobs, we'll have a disaster in hand in the years to come. And that's what the urgency of the situation is. Coming back to the recent speech that our Prime Minister made at the Independence Day, what he said is if we move ahead with the dream of digital India to manufacture electronic goods and become self-reliant, at least there, how big can the benefit for the Treasury be? And how does the benefit to the Treasury come in? It comes in because we don't need to pay for the salaries of those employed in other countries in the world. We don't need to pay for the salaries in Vietnam, in China, in US and so on, where they are manufacturing the goods which you're using now. Can we use your money to pay for jobs created here, which will also help our Treasury? And which brings us back to what our Honorable Minister for Communication and Information Technology has mentioned, that we can give jobs to 28 million people if we push electronics manufacturing in a big way that requires lots of incentives, duty, restructuring and other things. And while we're talking about jobs and focusing on skills, we must also keep in mind that we need to grow the industry. If we don't get people to come in and invest, there are no jobs. We can skill as many people as we want, there will be no jobs. In fact, if there are people who are manufacturing right now and they need people, they've got the people. How else are things happening? They're not waiting for somebody to come and do skill development. Those jobs are there. Maybe the skills are not up to the mark. Maybe there's an issue with the quality of people there. But things are working as of now. So that's not what we want as we move forward. What we want is proper jobs and proper skills so that it's a virtuous cycle. The more people invest, the better skills we have. The better skills we have, more people will invest. And if you look at the entire economy per se, you see the contribution of jobs from electronics and IT hardware is very, very minimal as of now. And if you look at the global overview of what is the potential, we are looking at a $1.7 trillion manufacturing sector in IT, in electronics. That's almost as big as the entire GDP of India. And it's growing extremely fast. The domestic demand itself is growing extremely fast. It will be reaching about 400 billion by 2020. There's immense opportunity for India to become an electronic hardware manufacturing hub if we can take care of all the issues that we've talked about, right from infrastructure down to skills being available. If you look at the domestic production, we have about $25 billion production locally, which is about roughly 5% of, or 1.3% of the global production. But within this 25 billion, most of it is imported components where we are essentially adding not more than 5% of the value add. So we have absolutely no play in the world in terms of electronics and electronics manufacturing, and therefore, even if we make a 10% increase, imagine the number of jobs that will be created in India. Let me just counter that with what China is doing. China's exports alone in this sector is 25% of India's GDP. So imagine if you can have even a small part of this pie, the number of jobs that we create. If you look at how the electronics jobs in India is split up, that's what the pie chart looks like. So it's very evenly spread. It's across components, strategic electronics, telecom equipment, computers, industrial electronics, and consumer electronics. Which brings us to the question as to where the spread is in terms of human resource electronics sector. Is it only for blue-collar workers, or is it for highly trained engineers, or is it spread? And if you can look at it at the chart over here, the requirements is spread across all the segments, be it MBAs, CAs, ITI graduates, everybody has a significant opportunity in terms of jobs in this particular sector. Similarly, if you look at the kind of jobs that are there, it's both administration, after sales, manufacturing, it's well spread across all kinds of jobs across the spectrum. However,